now move to the Middle East, and in a major development in the long-awaited Israel-Hamas truce talks, Hamas's lead negotiator has said that the group is ready to enter a new round of talks aimed at sealing a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Negotiator Khalil al-Hayya made the declaration in a speech marking the start of Eid Al-Adha festivities. Talks aimed at brokering a new ceasefire have failed to yield a breakthrough since the last truce fell apart in March. Following this, Israel in fact launched its operation in Gaza again. Meanwhile, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency has said that Israeli attacks killed at least 37 people on Thursday as a US-backed aid group reported it had resumed operations after a one-day hiatus. Amid these reports, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the country is using armed gangs in Gaza to help fight Hamas. His admission comes after a new wave of military strikes. The statement marked the government's first public acknowledgement that it had backed the armed Palestinian groups based around powerful families. The groups stand accused by aid workers of carrying out criminal attacks and stealing aid from trucks. Well, Scott Faulkner, thank you very much for staying with us. Some big developments in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Let's first look at Hamas signalling that they're ready for a next round of talks. This comes after Steve Witkoff had a proposal that was accepted by Israel. Hamas had countered, but it seems that they're willing to go back to the negotiating table. Is this a move, do you think, of desperation given the current situation in the Gaza Strip?
Very much so. Again, Hamas is looking for any way to remove Israel from the Gaza Strip. I mean, they're really being pushed against the wall. I think that there's the fact that Israeli forces were able to recover 2 bodies of the dead hostages on their own. I think, again, Hamas is starting to realize that it may be only a matter of time before Israel finds either the other hostage bodies or even the other hostages. So they want to get anything they can on the bargaining table.
Yes, and the situation, as we know, in Gaza is extremely difficult. The humanitarian crisis being reported by humanitarian groups continues. How positive is it that US-backed aid has now resumed in the enclave after that brief pause?
It's helpful. I mean, again, we know that going back to 2003, when Israel left Gaza, that literally tens of billions of dollars of aid has always been diverted to Hamas, and instead of building schools and building what could have been one of the great Mediterranean resorts, they built tunnels and built weapons and trained soldiers. So I think that the civilians in the Gaza Strip have always been deprived of really what they should have, and right now, in many cases, ironically, they may be getting more aid now than they have even before the war began, because Hamas is now not the intermediary of getting the aid. It's going directly to the people, and that's another key part to this U.S. initiative.
Scott, let's now shift our focus to an acknowledgement from Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel has been backing groups that are against Hamas, but groups that have had accusations of criminal activities in the enclave put against them. I want to get your opinion on how you think Donald Trump will receive this information, giving his staunch backing for Israel in the face of wider condemnation from world leaders.
I think the key is that the civilians who've suffered all these years under Hamas, there's probably people who finally are now feel emboldened to stand up against Hamas. And if we're going to neutralize Hamas once and for all, there's got to be a actual grassroots civilian uprising against Hamas, not just simply an Israeli invasion against Hamas. So we'll see whether these reports of basically gangster kind of activity are real or propaganda. I think, again, the key is that if we're going to ever solve the Gaza issue, we're going to have an alternative to Hamas, and maybe part of this activity by anti-Hamas insurgencies may be the glimmer of hope that we need.
Scott, to end our discussion, I do want to question the future for Gaza if there is influence from alleged armed gangs in ending this current war. Could this be a case of replacing one terrorist group with another group who may not be terrorists but could have a checkered past as well?
Well, we certainly have Libya back under Obama as an example, where Gaddafi was a terrible person, but after he fell from power, Libya became just a totally chaotic, violent place. So, we're seeing the same thing now in Syria, that, like you're saying, kind of name your poison. So the question is that, Hamas has been a horrible insurgency, terrorist organization that has killed, thousands. And so we don't want them around. But then, like you're saying, is it just like we're seeing now in Syria, like we saw in again, Libya, what is the alternative? Is there an end game that is actually going to be better for the region? And I think everybody is hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Scott Faulkner, thank you ever so much for joining us for 2 extended discussions there. We will, of course, keep an eye on future ceasefire talks between Israel, Hamas, and the situation going on in the enclave. We stay in the region now, though.